Wow, what a crowd. We are so fortunate to have Hillary Clinton here today to talk about her future for America. Secretary Clinton has been somebody who's been breaking down barriers her whole life and will continue to do that. She's somebody with a great heart, but also with the smarts to move this country forward and to get things done. On April 26th, Western Pennsylvania is going to be Clinton country. While there are other candidates out there talking about building walls, we know Pittsburgh. We know Pittsburgh is the city of bridges. And Secretary Clinton is somebody who builds bridges. And to introduce the next president of the United States is our great mayor who builds bridges as well, Mayor Bill Peduto.
Thanks, Rich. It is so great to be at Carnegie Mellon. Hello, Pittsburgh. Right outside beautiful Schenley Park and its rolling hills. Can you feel the hills? How about it? Hall of Famer Franco Harris. He knows what backing a champion means. Our county executive is a proud alumni of Carnegie Mellon University. I gave it a couple of years, it just didn't work out. But there were so many great times that I remember here, this stage where The Clash played in 1982. And today we have a historic moment in Pittsburgh. If you think about Pittsburgh in the 1980s, it was so much different than it is today. We were looking down the abyss of economic collapse. We were looked at around the country and around the world as a city that had lived its time and a city that had died. And if you see it today in the way that it has come back, you can understand there is hope when you invest in people, and there is hope when you have a vision of where to go. When you understand that what unites us makes us stronger, and what divides us makes it weak. When you are not afraid to look at challenges, but you take them on and you address them. And that's how Pittsburgh came back. And that's why mayors across the country, the progressive mayors all over this country, are backing Hillary Clinton. Because she understands our past, she knows where we're at, and she has a vision for our future, an America for all. It is my honor to introduce the next President of the United States, Secretary Hillary Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, I am thrilled to be here at Carnegie Mellon University and to be in this great American city, as the mayor so rightly said, a city that has not only built bridges, but moved into the future, demonstrating absolutely that you can have resilience if you are resourceful, if you don't give up, you keep working together. We can make it here in Pittsburgh and America. I come out of a tradition of American progressivism which believes with all our hearts that we are one country, one people, one future. And we have to work with each other, lift each other up. We have to respect each other. We have to demonstrate by what we do that our diversity is an asset. It makes us the luckiest nation in the world to have the talents, the dreams, the aspirations of countless people. But what I want to do, if I'm so fortunate as to be your president, is to knock down every barrier that stands in the way of any American being able to fulfill his or her God-given potential. Every American deserves the building blocks of a personal future that will help us build America's future. So I've been very clear in this campaign. I take a backseat to nobody. When it comes to being a progressive, but I do believe if you are a progressive, you need to make progress. You got to get things done. You've got to bring people together, and that's what I intend to do. You see, I think there are three big tests the next president has to meet. And if you think about it, you're actually doing a big job interview. You want to know, who are these people running for president? Where do they come from? What do they believe? What have they done in the past? What have they not just said, but what have they accomplished? And can we count on them? Can we count on them to stand up for Americans and America? And so here are these tests. Number one, can the next president actually deliver results that make differences, positive differences in the lives of Americans of all ages? You got to be able to ask that. Well, I think one of the ways you look is, what have you done already? Who have you helped? Who have you fought for? Who have you taken on? Who have you stood up against? Now, the second test is, can you keep us safe and continue to lead the world on behalf of American values? And the third is, can you unify America? Can you bring us together? Can you end the divisiveness that has become all too common in our politics? So, when I think about producing results, I think about my grandfather, who came with his family as a young immigrant to Northeast Pennsylvania, to Scranton. I think about how he went to work in the Scranton lace mills when he was still a teenager, and he worked there his entire life. And he built a good middle-class life in those times for his three sons. And then his sons went to college, Penn State. And when they got out of college, I know it's a little school up the road. When they got out of college, they had a better future. And my dad was a small businessman, and my mom had a really tough upbringing, but she got through it, and she showed resilience and grit that was such a great example to me. Now, every one of us has a story. Your own families. You've seen the struggles, maybe not in your time, but in the prior generations. And what's been so extraordinary about America, this amazing experiment, is that we delivered. We weren't perfect, and we had a lot of problems to overcome, but we delivered, and we never gave up, and we just kept going. And yes, sometimes we fell short of our own dreams, but that didn't stop us. So what I want you to understand as I look out at all of you, particularly those in front of me, this election is much more about your futures than anything else. It's about what kind of country will be waiting for you as you make your decisions over the next years, and what kind of world will be out there. So I want you to imagine with me what we can build together. Imagine an economy that creates enough good-paying jobs for every American to feel that he or she counts, to have the purpose and dignity that comes with a good job, with a rising income. Imagine that we put millions of Americans to work again, fixing our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our ports, our airports. Not only what we can see, but what we can't see. No person in America should ever drink water contaminated by lead or anything else. Imagine that we once again become the manufacturing engine of the world, that we are building what the world needs, what is creating our future. I was just over at the Robotics Institute, and I saw the extraordinary work they are doing in medicine, in manufacturing, in the kind of home care delivery that will be part of our future because of the work done at this great university, by the faculty, by the students. I want us once again to believe that we can make the future by making the goods that we then can export around the world. I know we can do this because not only at the Robotics Institute, but in many places across our country, I have seen that future. I know what we can accomplish, but we've got to make sure our tax code rewards that kind of work. We invest in research, again, at the level that we should from the federal government. So that's why for both infrastructure and manufacturing, I've laid out very specific plans about how to do this. We need a national infrastructure bank that can continue to fund the kind of work that needs to be done in our country. And in manufacturing, I have a $10 billion plan that will invest in the kind of inventions and productivity increases that can come right out of this great university and put people to work. And I want you to join me in one of the great goals that has ever been set by human beings, and that is to combat climate change and begin to reverse the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. I care passionately about this because I actually listen to the scientists. And when you ask the Republicans who are running, you know, they all say, well, I'm not a scientist. Well, I bet Carnegie Mellon could help teach them about climate change and what it means for our country. But it's not only because we face this existential threat, but because there are economic opportunities if we put our heads together and work to create them. I was there in 2009. President Obama and I had to crash a meeting in Copenhagen during one of the climate conferences, literally had to stalk the Chinese and the Indians. They kept telling us they couldn't meet with us. They said, well, we're on the way to the airport. On the way to the airport? Meeting's not over. So we sent out scouts through this huge convention center, and word came back. They're way in the back. They're having a secret meeting. So the president and I said, well, I think we'd like to attend. So off we went. And they had been dodging and avoiding us for days. So we marched up the stairs, and the security guards were saying, no, no, no. And President Obama and I just kept smiling, hi, hi, hi. And the room they were in was all, covered with curtains, so you couldn't see who was in there. And so the president just went up and kind of pushed through the security guard's arm. And then his arm went back up, so I ducked under the security guard's arm. And we got into the room, and the president said, we've been looking for you. And then we pulled up chairs, and we sat down, and we said, let's reach some agreements so we can start to move the world toward actually facing up to, dealing with, and reversing the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's why I was thrilled when 195 countries signed the agreement in Paris. My opponent said, oh, no, he didn't like it, it wasn't good enough. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We finally got 195 countries on board. So now here's our challenge. Some country is going to be the 21st century clean energy superpower. As things stand right now, I think it's going to be either Germany, China, or us. I want it to be us, and I want Carnegie Mellon to help lead the way. I'll tell you what, I've set 2 big goals. I've set a lot of them about climate. I want to have a North American climate agreement. We need to be working with Canada and Mexico as we redo our grid. We need to be understanding how we're going to challenge states on top of the president's Clean Power Plan to go even further. And I've said, let's have 500 million more solar panels deployed by the end of my first term and enough clean energy to power every home by the end of my second term. These are jobs that have to be done right here in Pennsylvania and across the United States. And these are opportunities for us. And I really challenge all of you to think about what each of you can do to contribute to our efforts to take on what is the 21st century global challenge. Now, I believe, too, that as we move forward with these big opportunities, we've got to do more for small businesses, especially to help young people start their small businesses, follow their dreams. I have been told, and I believe it to be true, that Carnegie Mellon has the best return on federal dollar research money coming to any higher ed institution in the country. And one of the reasons is because you have made it easier for faculty and grad students and maybe even undergrads to start businesses. I want to unleash that. I want to see millions of new American small businesses because that is where most of the new jobs will come from. So I want to open up opportunities for you. I also want our economy to be fairer. So imagine that people who work full-time get paid a minimum wage that doesn't end up in poverty at the end of the year. And imagine that finally women get equal pay for the work we do. This is not just a women's issue. This is a family issue. If you have a wife or a mother or a sister or a daughter who's working and they're not being paid fairly and equally, when they go to the store, when they're in the supermarket checkout line, the cashier doesn't say, oh, okay, you only have to pay 78 cents on the dollar. Or if you're an African American woman, you only have to pay 68 cents on the dollar. Or if you're a Latino woman, you only have to pay 58 cents on the dollar. Last time I checked, there was no woman's discount for failing to get equal pay in the first place. Now, everything I've just said, the Republicans are against. Every single thing. And you know, I'm proud that we've run an issue-oriented campaign in the Democratic primary. Far as I can tell, the Republicans have run an insult-oriented campaign. But make no mistake about it, they are going to do everything they can to take back the White House. And if they get the White House plus a Republican Congress, we will not recognize our country. This is one of the most consequential elections. We have to build on the progress that President Obama has made, and we've got to go further. And here's one of those inconvenient facts that you might want to share with your Republican friends. Our economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. I mean, we don't have to go back to ancient history. During the 1990s, under my husband's presidency, at the end of 8 years, we had 23 million new jobs, and incomes went up for everybody. Not just people on the top, middle-class families, working families, poor families. The median family income went up 17% in those 8 years. And the median African-American income went up 33% because there were so many jobs. And we ended up with a balanced budget and a surplus. Pretty hard to beat that record. But I'll tell you what, you know, the Republicans, you give them credit for consistency. They are consistently wrong when it comes to the economy. So in comes George W. Bush. I was in the Senate representing New York. I stood up on the Senate floor. I said, they don't want to take us back before the Clinton years. They want to take us back before Franklin Roosevelt. They want to take us back before Teddy Roosevelt. They were slashing taxes. They were absolutely taking their eyes off of the financial markets and the mortgage markets. And we know what happened. The worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. And I don't think President Obama gets the credit he deserves for digging us out of the ditch that the Republicans put us in. So, beware, because they're peddling the same economic snake oil. Trickle-down economics all over again. Well, we're not going to let them get away with it. Because it may be uncomfortable for them, but we have history, the facts, and common sense on our side. So that's why I want us to build on the progress we've made, but go further. And a key to the economy that I imagine that we can create is education. And I think we have to start with early childhood education. When I got out of law school, I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund. And working for children and giving children a chance and evening the odds for every child is really at the core of what I believe we must do. So for me, making sure that every kid has a chance to fulfill that potential is critical to our economy, critical to our democracy. And that's why we need universal pre-K and why we need to help kids so that when they get to school, they're prepared and ready to actually learn. And when we're looking at elementary and secondary education, I want to be a good partner with our nation's public school teachers. I want to give them the support that they need. You know, before I came out here, I had the incredible honor of meeting a family of a young high school student from here in Pittsburgh who went to Woodland High School. Her name was Kaylee McDowell. And I met the family because Kaylee had been an ardent supporter of mine. And she'd come to meet me when I'd be here in Pittsburgh, even when she was just a little girl. And it was her dream to someday go into politics herself. So tragically, Kaylee had a disease that just wasn't properly treated in the very beginning. And she passed away just a few days ago. And the school actually called off, the school district called off school because she was the kind of young woman that everybody knew and everybody liked. You know, she was popular, but she also was kind to the kids who weren't. And the teachers told her parents, who I met with, her grandparents, her aunts and uncle, her little brother, that they were sure that Kaylee would have realized her dreams. And I wanted to just mention her because she won't be able to fulfill those dreams for the kind of world, the kind of country she wanted to see, but every one of us can do our part. And for those in education, it is such an important role, and I want to be a good partner. And I want to give young people the chance to be able to afford to go to college without drowning in debt. Every single young person. I know we can do this because right now it's just not fair. It's wrong. Too many kids are being shut out, or they start and they can't finish, or they never graduate. Not because they're not trying, not because they're not able, they can't afford it. And then if they do get out, they often end up with a huge debt. How many of you have student debt? Yeah, exactly. Well, I want you to be able to get out from under it. So here's what I want to do. In addition to having debt-free tuition for people going to college, if you come out with debt, I want you to be able to refinance that debt to save thousands of dollars, to get it down, just like the way you can refinance a mortgage or a car payment. And we're going to revamp the whole student aid industry because I want more people to have the chance I did. Because when I got out of law school and I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund, I made very little money. But I didn't care. I wanted to do that work. But I was also fortunate because I was in a plan at that time where I could pay back my debt as a percentage of my income. So even though I was making only $14,000 a year, I could actually afford to rent a place and, you know, all the other things you have to pay for. I want you to have that chance. And then I want to end your debt after a certain number of years. Maybe 20 years, you're done. Even if you still have unpaid debt ahead of you. And we are going to get the harassing bill collectors out of your life, and we're going to end the practice of the government making money off of lending money to kids to go to school. And we're going to continue the work of the Affordable Care Act and make sure that we get the costs down and we expand the opportunities under it and take on high prescription drug costs. Now, again, everything I've just said, Republicans don't agree with. And they also want to limit our rights. all of our rights. Well, I want you to know where I stand. I will defend a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. And I will defend Planned Parenthood against the partisan attacks that the Republicans are throwing at them. And I will defend marriage equality and discrimination against the LGBT community. I will defend voting rights, which are under attack by states across our union. And I will do everything I can to either reverse or pass a constitutional amendment to absolutely end Citizens United and its corruption on our political system. You know, a lot of people say they're against it. I take it really personally. It was about me. It was one of the many, 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 many attacks that the right wing has waged against me by this group, Citizens United. And they were, once again, making stuff up about me and running, pretend documentaries about me. And they were told they couldn't do it. So they appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, oh, yes, of course, speech equals money. So the more money you have, the more speech you have. Somehow I don't think that was part of the logic behind the First Amendment. So I think this is truly one of the worst decisions ever in our history. We're also going to work hard on a range of issues the Republicans are also against. I do not believe we should privatize Social Security. We ought to extend the life of the Social Security Trust Fund. We should fix the problems with the Veterans Administration, not privatize it. We should keep working for comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. And we should bring the country together to stand up to the gun lobby to get common sense gun safety reforms. So we have a big agenda. And it's important when we imagine that future we want for you to think, okay, who can deliver? Before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care, right? I have been in the trenches fighting for opportunity, for justice, for fairness, for equality my entire adult life. And I am proud to continue that fight because it's at the core of who we are as Americans. So we need to stand up and make sure our voices and our votes count. And the second test is, can you keep us safe? And here, you have to recognize you're voting for a president and a commander-in-chief. National security is not an afterthought. It is a core responsibility of the presidency, and it is essential that we do everything we can to lead the world, to bring it together, to further our interests, advance our values, and keep us safe at home. I was part of the biggest counterterrorism decision in the last decades, the decision to go after bin Laden. And as a senator from New York, I wanted to bring him to justice. And so I advised the president to go forward, but the president had to make the decision. And President Obama made the right decision. Now, finally, the third test is, can you bring us together? And boy, do we need that right now. When I listen to the rhetoric coming out of Donald Trump's campaign, it is deeply disturbing because It is intended to set people against one another. It is intended to incite prejudice and paranoia. It is even intended to incite violence, as we have seen. It is so contrary to who we are and who we must be if we're going to own the future. And I intend for our country to own the future, to make the future, to be the future. So let me tell you, I will go anywhere, anytime, meet with anyone to find common ground. I did it as First Lady. I did it as Senator. I did it as Secretary of State. You know, after we weren't successful on health care reform, I got back up and said, okay, what can we do? You always have to look to determine what can we do. That is the progressive tradition. So I worked with Democrats and Republicans, and we created the Children's Health Insurance Program. And 8 million children got health care for the first time in many instances. And when I was in the Senate, I worked with, I think, practically every Republican. I worked to find that common ground. Sometimes it was only a sliver of ground. But that's our obligation when we're in public life. We don't have the luxury, as some do in dictatorships or religious theocracies, to say my way or no way. That's not the way a democracy is supposed to work. So we made progress, sometimes way too slowly to satisfy me. And when I was Secretary of State, I helped to negotiate a nuclear arms treaty with Russia to reduce the number of nuclear weapons on both sides, which remains the biggest threat, the biggest immediate threat that our world faces. And we got the agreement signed, but we had to get 2/3 vote in the Senate. That meant I had to get 13 Republicans to vote. And so I started working on it. I just kept working and working and working. It's kind of a dull, boring, but necessary kind of work. You know, you just get up every day and you think, how can I push this forward an inch or two? Maybe I can even get 6 or 7 inches if I'm lucky. Well, I got those votes. We got that treaty. The world is safer because we lowered the number of nuclear weapons in Russia and the United States. So here is what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to imagine this future with me, because I want your support, of course, in this upcoming primary on April 26th, but I also will want it if I'm fortunate enough to be the nominee in November. But I'll tell you when I really want it. I really want it when I'm sworn in as president and we all begin to work together to fix these problems, to make the future happen. So, Carnegie Mellon, Pittsburgh, Western PA, please come support me on April 26th, and I will fight for and support you for the next 4 to 8 years. Thank you, and God bless you.